Are you ready for Scene0? Well, you better be, because it's about to happen. So there's been yet another really big new stream. They have these a lot actually, and this one is a juicy one because once again they've dropped a whole bunch of stuff on top of us, a lot of quality of life stuff, a lot of new announcements and all of that. So let's just see what happens. So this was the news segment where first they talked about a lot of quality of life stuff and UI improvements and a lot of the little things that are kind of important but that we still of course need to be in the game. And first off, they mentioned a update to the gallery. And by the way, I'm going to use a lot of slides here that were from the actual announcement stuff, but of course the slides themselves were in Japanese, so all of these slides that I'm going to show you are machine translated, like with Google Translate and stuff, but still I'm going to give you the deets. So basically, if you had a character that was, for example, Madoka, who had multiple Kyoku, like regular Pluvia Madoka, but also Ultimate Madoka, then the voice lines would only show the voice lines for regular Pluvia Madoka, which is not what it's supposed to be, because Madoka also has her own voice lines, you just can't hear them. So they're going to do an update where now when a character has multiple Kyoku with different voice lines, which for example also applies to Muramura and to Doppel Iroha, you can actually listen to each individual Kyoku's voice lines instead. And I think they might have also mentioned, I'm not 100% certain on this, that Doppel Iroha might get a model update so that she actually looks different than regular Iroha, something like that. So that's the first thing they dropped on us. Then next up, this is where they mentioned which characters this applies to, but then they also said, okay, we're gonna have some more quality of life stuff. This is the stuff they also actually mentioned in a prior news segment. So I think if you remember back from last news video that I did about, I think it was Madoka, where I mentioned some stuff where, oh, they're gonna have a continue reading button in the event story, or they're gonna have a button in the magic upgrade level system where instead of having to go to maximum level or next level, you can now just go to whatever specific level that you want to upgrade to. So if you don't want, so if let's say for example you have a new character and you press the all button and it goes to level 115, but you want to stop at 110, you would currently have to go through 110 individual levels. But now with the next update, which by the way drops this Friday, which is the 29th if you're watching this, of May, you can then simply select level 110 for example and go only to that. So that's what you can do. Next up, there could be a lot of slides by the way, they dropped so many of them on us. Next, quality of life stuff, really important stuff, really important UI stuff. So now when you are at the battle result screen at the very end, if you lost for example, there's a rematch button. Now there's a retry button, you can just immediately hit that button, go back into the fight once again. Awesome, quick retry. And also they're gonna do some updates to the way the buffs and debuffs are shown. Not exactly sure what exactly they mean with this. Maybe it's sort of a timer on the buffs so that you can see how long a buff lasts without having to look up in the actual like info section of each character how long each buff lasts. But maybe they're also going to simply add numbers to the actual info segments, whereas I'm not sure if right now I can actually see the numbers for buffs, like how many percent an attack buff is or something like that. I'm not sure about any of that, but at least they're going to try and somehow make it easier to see what buffs and debuffs are actually going on. Then some stuff to the organization of your party, where when you go into your party you have the auto party section where you can click that button. No one uses this, or apparently some people have used it, like 5 people or so on Reddit that complain that teams are shit, and then people are asking them why is your team bad, and they're like, I don't know, I just press the auto button, and auto button gives you really, really bad teams. But if you don't want a complete team, you can now also use the auto button specifically to get, for example, just only automatic Kyoku, or only automatic portrait, or only automatic support Kyoku, for example. Stuff like that. I don't think it's going to be very helpful, because really you shouldn't use the auto parties function anyway. Like, please don't use it and actually put some thought into what you're doing, because auto party, like, just don't. And then also some more improvements to something else we're not quite 100% certain about, where the wording is not quite obvious, where now when you're increasing the level of your Kyoku, of your special attacks, of your portrait level, there's now apparently better ways of seeing what each level actually gives you and what the upgrade materials for each level actually are, which currently you can kind of already see. You just have to do a little bit of maths in your head, so I'm not quite sure what exactly they mean with that. And then changes to make missions easier to use. I think what they mentioned with this one is that if you have a lot of missions, and missions are the ones where it says, for example, do 5 battles a day or whatever, and then you go into your missions and you get something for having done 5 battles a day or something like that. Now, if you have missions that are yet to be completed, like let's say, for example, they have a new training section mission, that training section mission might actually be really far down the list, and you might not even know that it exists. And so now they're going to change it so that when you have a mission that you haven't completed yet, it goes to the top of the list so that you know, okay, I have to complete this mission. Awesome. Next up, Chaos Mode. So a lot of people have been, for some reason, not that enthusiastic about Chaos Mode. And I know the reason, which is that if you've been struggling with Nightmare Mode, then knowing that they're going to add something beyond that is probably not going to be very nice. However, this is not what Chaos Mode really is. Chaos Mode is something different, okay? So what Chaos Mode is the following. So you're going to have, at first, only 3 witches. And this is not a complete story section where you go through multiple battles and you go through extra stages and you go through a labyrinth or whatever. No, you just go into a boss fight. And currently there's 3 boss fights. So they're going to add 3 boss fights for now. And you just fight the final boss of any of these memory windows, and they're extremely difficult. They're more difficult than nightmare bosses, so they're basically super duper mega level. And you go in there and you're given 3 challenges to complete. Now, you don't have to complete all of them at once. You can do them one after another if you want to. And the challenges are rather simple stuff like do more than 1 million damage in a single attack. Okay, or clear with everyone being above 80% health. Okay, or clear within 6 cycles or whatever. Stuff like that. Where it's really just see how well you can beat this boss that is super duper difficult. And now the main thing that I want to impress upon you is that what are the rewards for this thing? Well, the rewards are basically just some titles. And that's about it. Like, this is, you're not doing this to unlock story, you're not doing this to unlock portraits, which is kind of sad because these would have been really powerful portraits, you know? But you're not doing it to unlock any of that. This really is just, hey, if you want to push yourself and do some cool stuff, you can do it and see if you can do it. And if you can't do it, awesome, here's a little title for your profile. And that's about it, okay? So if you can't beat it, it's fine. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. And here's what they are going to do with the release schedule, where, like I mentioned at first, they're going to release only 3 witches on May 30th, which is, this Friday. And what else are they going to do? Well, it's hard to read, but at the very end of June, so a month later, they're going to add 3 more witches that are going to add to this. And they're going to probably add like 3 more witches every single month or something, so you have more challenges to complete in Chaos Mode. And like I said, if you can't beat them, it's okay. You're not really missing out on anything. It's okay. Next up, they mentioned this a bunch of times before, but yes, characters that are in standard banners, like for example, Mami or Kyoko, they were in standard banners. After some time has passed, which is usually like 2 months after the end of the banner, they're going to get added to the actual standard banners. Like, they're getting added to all of the banners in the game and become part of the standard pool. And then I'll say, okay, now is the time that time has elapsed, because I can see all of these ended in April. It's now the end of May, so now they are actually going to get added to the standard banners. So yes, after the 30th, all of these, or the 31st even, these are all going to be in the banners, and they also mentioned which banners they're going to be in. So on the 30th, they're going to be added to the new pickup gacha, which by the way is Mabayu. I'm going to get to that in a bit, but on 30th, they're going to get added to Mabayu. And on the 31st, they're getting added to every single other gacha. So I think on the 31st is where all these gachas like refresh in a way. I'm not quite sure. It probably is some server side stuff they need to worry about. But since a new gacha starts on the 30th, they're like, yeah, whatever, you get it on the 30th already. If you, like, only on that gacha. So when the Mabayu gacha launches, the Mabayu gacha is going to have these characters also in the spook pool, but the other regular gachas don't. And only on the 31st will actually all of the other standard gachas, like the Magia key gachas, actually also have these characters on it. That's basically what this is trying to impress upon you. It's a bit weird that there's like a date difference, but like I said, it's probably some server side weird stuff with refreshing memory or whatever, I don't know. But not the actual important stuff. Mabayu. So they talked for mostly the rest of this entire presentation about Scene0. And in case you don't know about Scene0, Scene0 is the official prequel to Madoka Magica, where it talks about Mabayu and everything that she did together with the Pulamagi Holy Quintet. And there has been a little bit of rumbling, because I made a video where I said that, Mabayu is the canon time traveling buddy of Homura. And the thing is, if Scene0 is canon, is basically the same answer to the question, is Rave Arc canon? Because there's going to be people who argue staunchly like, no, this is not canon. Only Puella Magi Madoka Magica is canon. Everything else is not canon. Not even Odiko is canon, right? Kazumika also not canon. Tat not canon. Everything is not canon. No, only Madoka Magica is canon. And there's other people who say, well, basically everything is canon. I mean, even Tamuno Magica might be canon, right? If Manga Record is canon, that means that there's a multiverse, because in Manga Record it's set up that there's like a multiverse, because it is specifically mentioned that Manga Record plays in a different universe than Puella Magi Madoka Magica, because Madoka is exists outside of just the universe, and you can look at different universes. Like, there's a whole story about this, but that's basically the idea behind this. And if there is a multiverse, then yeah, basically every single spin-off is canon, because even if you argue that this is not the same continuity as the original Puella Magi Madoka Magica anime, you can still say, oh, but it's another universe where this happened. And that's about that. So you can have so many debates about whether or not it's canon or not. To me, it's canon, because even if you argue it's not part of the original continuity of the Puella Magi Madoka Magica anime that we saw, it's still undoubtedly part of the multiverse that we, if you believe Manga Record is canon, also exists. So to me, it's canon. And I think to most people it's canon. And if you're someone who believes it's not canon, then you're probably also the same kind of person who believes that Rave Arc isn't canon, which I'm not going to say anything negative about that. It's just differences of opinion, and this is simply my opinion, basically. So for me, it's canon. So what they're going to do with Scene0 is the following. They will have an event first. In fact, they're going to have 3 events, and they're all going to be really, really long events, probably the longest events you've ever seen. And what they're going to do is they're going to start out as events. And then when they're done, when these events are done, they're not just going to be added to the archive as usual. Instead, they will then later become regular main story, which is kind of weird that it starts out as an event and then becomes main story. I'm not sure why they're doing this, because they could have just released it as main story immediately and then simply have time-gated rewards, or temporary rewards, and that would have basically been the same, but sure, whatever. Generally, this means we get more rewards overall, so sure, whatever, okay. And as you can see, this is what the memory window is going to look like once it's part of the actual main story. And this is a little overview of the story. It's about Aki Mabayu, which, by the way, Google Translate will translate the name completely different every single time. I've seen it written like 4 different times from Google Translate, because Google Translate just can't do it. And yeah, it's basically a story of, like I said earlier, about what she's doing before Madoka Magica, but also at the same time, because time is weird. Like, there's a really weird timey-wimey stuff going on with this prequel, so get ready to read it, because before, this story was only available in Manga Record in Japanese. But now, since it's coming to Excel, that means for the very first time you don't need to watch a translation on YouTube. You can just watch the entirety of Scene0, which, by the way, is voiced. The entirety is voiced, just in-game on English. Nice, awesome, incredible. They also mentioned something that also was part of some characters in Manga Record, because in some Manga Record characters' backstory, if you read their Magical Girl personal story, there were some spoilers, right, regarding main story, where a character might mention something that happened in main story. That would be spoilers. So they did a system where you had to have beaten a certain amount of main story before you can actually read that character's personal Magical Girl story, and doing something similar here, where when Mabayu releases, which will be at the end of this week on Friday, you won't be able to read the entirety of the Magical Girl story. You have to first wait until the entirety of Scene0 has actually released, and only then can you actually read her Magical Girl story, because otherwise it would be spoilers. That's basically what they're saying here. And now they also show the actual character. I'm not going to go too in depth. Like last time, I talked a little bit more in depth about the character. This time I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to waste that much time on it, because I'm going to have like specifically a video on her at the end of the week anyway. It's going to give you some cliff notes, where basically the whole point is that she's a light type buffer who gives someone a special buff. And first off, that character gets 50% extra attack for 2 turns, but also they gain this special cutout buff, right? And what this cutout buff does is, when that character who has that buff then gets their next turn, and they take their turn, then at the end of their turn, so when their turn is about to end, that buff suddenly activates and gives them a bonus turn, right? Which it says right here, at the end of that Kyoku, like that character's turn, then they gain 100% action order, which basically means that they immediately get another turn. And it also removes two debuffs. Now keep in mind, debuffs, not ailments. So ailments is stuff like curse and burn or whatever. Debuffs is stuff like attack down or defense down and stuff like that. Debuffs get removed by this as well, which right now is not really that interesting, but maybe future bosses are going to use more like deadly debuffs on you, so this might be really good for dealing with that. And it also mentions that you can't use it on yourself, so you can't give Mabayu bonus turns repeatedly with that. But yeah, so for example, you can use this on a breaker, where you use this on a breaker, and then whenever that breaker's next turn happens in the future, they will get a double turn. Or you can use this on your attacker for them to get a double turn. So it's similar to Hazuki, who can action advance characters, just instead of immediately action advancing someone forward, you basically give someone a check, and when it's their turn, they can cash that check in for a bonus turn, which is overall more powerful, but you still need to wait for that character's turn to actually come around until you can cash that check in. So really powerful. And then the other thing she does is her special just increases everyone's damage, and also increases the damage they deal to weak attributes, which is another type of buff that we haven't seen before, where it's like another damage up, but this damage up only activates if you're hitting the weak element of the boss, right? So for example, you have a Homoda. That means specifically you want to take Mabayu and Homoda into fights that are weak to dark, so that Homoda can actually hit the weak element, and then you get even more bonus damage. Awesome. And then the passive is simply you get a fast first turn, which most supports get, by the way. And then when you use a normal attack, so let's say Cut and Splice, that actually takes a lot of SP, because it takes an SP to use, and then the character you give it to, they're gonna get a double turn. So probably they want to use SP on both of the turns, right? That's a total of 3 SP this entire thing costs. So because that takes a lot of SP, you might want to normal attack with her, and when she normal attacks, her attack is like 20% faster, like she action advances herself by 20% when she uses normal attack, so that you can build SP faster and actually get back to your turn faster if you have to normal attack. Awesome. And it also says, also passively, all characters always deal 20% more damage to weak allies attribute, to weak attribute. So the same thing that she does from her special. On top of that, you have it passively on everyone as well. So with the special, you're doubling up and getting a grand total of like 40% bonus damage to weak element, which also means that if you're taking her with you into fights where your characters aren't hitting weak element, like let's say for example, once again you have Homoda, and you have Homoda and Mabayu, and you're fighting against a boss that isn't dark weak, then she does basically nothing with these damage up effects. Like these damage up effects don't do anything because you're not hitting weak element, so be careful. The support passive is simply a similar idea than her ability, which is just, oh, when you attack, you get 10% fast attack, awesome, and 20% speed on top of that, which most supports also give as passive. They just increases speed, so this is nothing special. So yeah, that's basically what she does, and her A2, because A1 and A4 are the same for every buffer, and her A2 simply gives you even more damage to weak attribute, but specifically for the character that you use cutout on, and also gives you 10% turn order for all allies when combat skills are activated. Now the wording on this sounds weird, but this is Google Translate, and I think what the intent is that when Mabayu uses her skill, that's when everyone gets 10% action order, because otherwise it would be way too powerful. At least I think that it only means Mabayu's skill actually gives you 10% action order for all allies, which is nice. So overall, pretty decent A2, but nothing too game-breaking. Is once again, if you're not hitting weak element, it's useless. And that's kind of the overall gist that I can already give you of this character. She does a really good job of bullying an enemy if you have a lot of SP, and if you're hitting weak element. You kind of need both of that to be like present for her to be great. But you can use this on your breaker, for example, to get really fast breaks, or you can use this then when the enemy is broken on your attacker for really fast damage. So overall, she can both have faster breaking and have faster damage, which makes her good in every situation, but only every situation where you want to be using her in the first place. Which, like I said, needs to have SP, you gotta have the skill points for that stuff, and secondly, needs to be weak element, at least for your attacker, otherwise that part of the equation is gonna suffer quite heavily. So I would say overall she's quite balanced. She's not a must-pull or anything like that, but she's pretty decent. And keep in mind, like I said, since she is rather situational, she's not a character that you're going to be taking with you into every fight, right? Only into specific fights, only specific bosses, but on those bosses, on those fights where she can actually play to her strengths, she's going to be extremely good. And that's about that. So then they also have some more events. So they talked about there's going to be special missions where when Chaos Mode starts, there's going to be special missions to get a 4-star key and a 4-star exchange medal and stuff like that. Now, as far as we know, these missions are not going to be anything to do with doing Chaos Mode, so you don't have to do Chaos Mode, as far as we know, to actually get this stuff. It's just that when Chaos Mode launches, you're also getting this stuff through missions. It's at least the way that I think they communicated this. What else do they have? Oh, new web shop packs. Awesome. So web shop packs are usually a pretty good deal if you're someone who actually spends money. If not, we can move on. And then they say, oh, there's also going to be countdown login bonus, which I think actually starts with the next login from when you're watching this video, which hopefully is the day it releases. So every single day you log in until Mabayu actually releases, and you get a key every day, I think. Awesome. Then they're also mentioning, okay, you know what? We've done the once a day free pull with Madoka. Let's do it again, right? So every single day you get to do a free gacha pull, and this gacha will have all these characters on it. Now, as far as I think they mean this is that Mabayu isn't actually rate up on this banner, but rather these are just all the characters that are on it plus the standard pool characters, so basically every character. I'm not quite sure exactly what character was actually on this or which character has a rate up, or maybe none of the characters have rate up, so that's kind of weird. But the important part is there's going to be a change to this. So additionally to just rolling the gacha every day, it seems like, and we're going to have to see how this actually works out in-game, because I'm not 100% certain how it's going to work out. If you are a diligent little person and you actually do log in every day and you roll the gacha every day during this event, and you complete every single day's gacha roll, you get a free 5-star Kyoko key. That's at least the way that I'm seeing this, but maybe that's not exactly what they mean, but that's at least what I think this is going to be like. So even if you get nothing from your free rolls, you're still getting a 5-star key apparently. So that's good. Then what else did they have? Oh, the second part of the Memories of You event? Yeah, we're waiting for that one because we only got the first part so far, so here's the second part. And they mentioned, I'm going to show you in a second when they actually mentioned that this will release, but they're saying, okay, this is coming now in June, and also coming in June is the refresh of the tower. So yes, another tower which probably will have more floors than before than we had. So because we had 30 floors first, then we had 35, maybe this one will have 40 floors, who knows. And then also there's going to be yet another event. This is the Amane Sisters event at the Nays. So the Nays are getting their event as well as another score attack. So this event with the Nays is also going to have a score attack against the Machibito Umano Wasa. Yeah, and that's going to be this boss, which by the way doesn't mean that you can use the strategy that you used against the horse in this score attack, because score attack bosses usually have their own mechanics, so it doesn't really matter what the score attack boss actually looks like. You just have to look at the in-game description of what the boss actually does, because it's going to have its own mechanics, I'm pretty certain. And then the more important stuff, since this is the Amane event, yes, we're going to get the Nays. Both of these characters have been mentioned, will be 5-star characters, so they're not 4-star, they actually will be 5-star characters on the same banner, it seems like, so another double release banner. With both of them, we don't know what the types are or they're anything like that, we just know they're coming, and this all leads then to the actual next roadmap for June. And yes, once again, we're going to have the exact same timing of banners where now every single 2 weeks, we're getting a new 5-star batch of characters, right? Either 1 or 2 new characters are going to be released every 2 new weeks, and hopefully that's slow enough for you guys, especially because these are standard banners, meaning not just Mabayu but also the Nays, and maybe the next Kyoku comes at the end of June as well. We don't know who it is, but I think they're going to arrive probably on the very last Friday of June. That's where they're going to arrive. They all seem to be standard, meaning they're all going to be added to the standard banner at a later point in time. So once again, if you're skipping the entirety of May and if you're skipping the entirety of June, you're not missing out on anything. So you can't say that the game is too fast, okay? Especially not now anymore. For the first month, yes, but now, not anymore. You can't say that anymore. So yeah, we're getting now at the end of May, on May 30th, we're getting Scene0, we're getting Chaos Mode quests. First batch, we're getting Mabayu and a whole bunch of other stuff that I talked about earlier with the quality of life stuff, with the free gacha pull every day. Then in early June, which I think is just going to be 1 week after the Mabayu release, is going to be the second part of the Memory with You event. Then the tower is going to refresh. And then mid-June, which is going to be probably exactly 2 weeks after Mabayu, is going to get the Nays with the Nay event and with the Nay score attack. Awesome. And then I think probably 2 weeks after that, I'm not exactly certain if it's going to be another 2 weeks or just 1 week, but probably another 2 weeks after that, we're going to get some other event quest, which they haven't announced yet. We're going to get more Chaos Mode content with 3 new witches, and we're going to get another 5-star Kyoku. We don't know who it is yet. And in the middle of all of that, like towards the latter part of June, they're also going to do another etc. news stream where we don't know what they're going to talk about, but yeah, there's going to be another etc. news stream by then. So yeah, that was a pretty big batch of stuff, but we've actually reached the end now. So even though I went through it rather quickly, I still felt like I spent half an eternity on all of this stuff. So yeah, that was that. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. I'll be streaming again at the end of this week when Mabayu releases. I hope to see you there. I hope you hit the subscribe and ring the bell. See you guys next time.